I call a meeting to order at 7 o'clock for council meeting December 4th, 2013. The opening prayer will be given by Pamela Scott, Reverend Pamela Scott from the Strathmore United Church.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we give you praise, for you alone are holy. We have much to be thankful for. We live in a community that enjoys the privilege and the responsibility of democracy. Thank you for all who participate by voting and letting their views be known. Thank you for those who accept the mantle of leadership. May they thoughtfully consider the needs of the community. May they have a discriminating ear for advice offered and consider the available resources so that they are well informed to carefully discern the direction needed and the leadership required to fulfill their mandate. We ask your blessing on all who are present this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. First item is public hearing, and there is no items for public hearing this evening. Third item is agenda amendments and adoptions, and the adoption of the minutes for the council meeting November 27th, 2013. Any questions in regards to it?
I have no additions, Your Worship.
I have no additions, Your Worship.
Nothing, Your Worship.
No?
Nothing.
Nothing, Your Worship.
Nothing from Your Worship. Thank you.
Your Worship, I'd move that the agenda be presented or adopted as presented. Thank you.
No discussion? All in favor? Carried. Previous minutes, minutes for the meeting of November 27th, regular council meeting. Any questions in regards to it? Any changes? No?
I'd move that council adopt the November 27th, 2013 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Discussion? None? All in favor? Carried. And delegations. We have the Strathmore Youth Club this evening.
You want to pass down now or later?
It doesn't matter. It's just those are the packages I've put together. It's a package we use for funders, but it just gives you information on all the programs we run.
Thank you.
Our brochure is in there as well as our newsletter.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Dr. Stanford.
You know it's going to give the pink too.
Thank you, Dwight.
Sorry. Good, Brad.
Sorry.
It's all good.
So I am just here tonight, I believe, to give an update on where the club is at. The town has been supporting us since June with our wages for our staff, as well as the utilities for the building. So, we're currently running our after-school program runs every day, and we have anywhere from 8 to 10 kids that are registered with that one every day. Generally it's slow in September, October, so it's starting to pick up now in November. That is our after-school homework club program. So it runs from 3:30 till 6, and it's a scheduled programming. So they come in, they have a snack, they go for a rec activity, then they come back and they have a homework time. So when their parents pick them up, that stuff's all looked after. It's just family time after that. We also are running some evening programs. We have our junior chef program that is running 2 nights a week. Our Cornerstone Leadership program runs every Wednesday night. And Thursdays we've started running it's called Extreme Kids. It's a rec-based program. Runs for an hour and a half on Thursdays. And it's just to give kids a taste of some of the other sports that we have offered in our community without fully registering for that program to see if they even like it. So they can come in, they can try a week of basketball, and then we provide them with resources that they could take basketball if they chose on a full-time basis. We're also running our Clubworks program, which is our partnership with the county, which offers some of our programming out in the rural areas. Currently, it's running right now in Hazard, and we have 8 kids registered in that program right now. And we are set to go to Clooney, Gleason, and Carson in the next few months to come with that one. During the day, we're running 2 programs in conjunction with the junior and senior high. We run our EYES program, which is a high-risk girls group. It runs every Wednesday morning and afternoon, depending on junior or senior high, touching on topics of self-esteem, high-risk behaviors, safety in the community, that sort of thing. So it's started here a couple weeks ago and doing well. We have 10 registered in each one, 10 from junior and 10 from senior high. And we also have our Fuse program. It's called Keep It Cool in there, but we've changed it up a little bit. So it is our anger management group, which we're running with the junior high, specifically for boys right now. We're looking at changing that in the future. What else? We have our Fusion program going, which is our drop-in for grades 7 to 12. Not being accessed a whole lot at this point. We're really trying to find some activities that can draw that in. We did have an identified group of youth that were really keen on doing something, but they haven't showed up for anything yet. So, but we are looking at some actual scheduled activities going into zoo lights, hockey games, that sort of things that we can access through some of the tickets we get through Kids Up Front to be able to take groups to do some of that. So hopefully we'll get a few more kids, and that's usually Fridays that we run that program. We're not running it every week just because we haven't had the numbers, and I can't support staff if I don't have the kids there. But looking at doing some surveys with the school to find out what the kids want to do so we can get them more involved. I'll tell you some programs that we have coming up in the new year will be our Mad Science and possibly Creative Station. Mad Science is just that. It's science and experiments and things like that for kids age 6 to 12. Creative Station is more arts-based, so arts and crafts and drama and that sort of activities. And we're also looking at doing the EYES group, so the girls group for the mainstream youth as well. So won't be as focused on the high-risk behaviors, but more of a self-esteem based program, and partnering with the mental health worker to provide that one, hopefully in January. So staffing-wise, we have myself and my program coordinator, who is Kalina Clark, and then I have 2 facilitators, Kathleen Teedy and Hannah Maggie, that come in and run the programs. And then I have another part-time, Pat Stewart, who helps us with our lunch program. Sorry, and I didn't mention that one. That's our Essential Edibles program. We provide a hot lunch program on Tuesday and Thursday over the lunchtime that facilitates the junior high and senior high. It does work on a voucher system, so if the teachers identify or tell welfare or churches that kids aren't getting meals, they provide them with a voucher, and they come in to us, and then they can get their meal. Otherwise, we charge $3 or $4 depending on what it is that we're serving that day. And we're also looking at opening up Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, not serving the hot lunch, but just opening it up for kids to come in and eat their lunch and use the foosball and the ping pong and that sort of thing, just to give them somewhere else to go than just hanging out on the streets and stuff at lunchtime. So that's pretty much it. Other than that, we're really trying to push our fundraiser that's coming up for our New Year's Eve Gala. And so we're pushing at that one right now. If there's any questions or...
Actually, do you have numbers to how many, like in total, how many students, how many youths are involved in all the programs? Not as a total, but how many individual students? I mean, I appreciate one student may be involved in more than one program.
Right.
So.
Well, we've sold 50 memberships.
Oh, okay.
So the way our program works is we have memberships and then at a different rate, and then people that just want to come for one program, then it's a little bit of a higher rate for them. So 50 memberships we've sold since September, and that usually increases January or February. Last year we sold, I think it was 92 memberships, and that's individual memberships. And then we have a few family ones that go in there as well.
Okay.
I don't have that offhand. I can get that information.
So it was 92 in 2012?
92 memberships, yeah.
In 12?
Up to September of this year. So our year goes September to September.
Oh, I see.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So we've just sold the 50 so far from September till now.
Do you get a sense that you're dropping, or
No, I don't think so. It's always slow September, October. Usually come January when people are in the swing of school and they've already got their other activities set, then they're looking to fill the holes in with other things. So historically, right from when we started, September through to November usually are slower times, but
Right.
then it increases. So
Great.
we usually have a influx of membership spot February, March, so that people get the lower rate for the summer camp program that we run as well.
Right on. Thank you.
Through the chair, Shannon, the rural programs that you offer, are those memberships included in these numbers, or are they?
They can purchase a membership because then they could utilize other programs, or like get lower rates in other programs we run other than their ClubWorks one. But it isn't tied into any other funding.
So if they don't buy a membership, how do they pay for?
They still, it's just like our rate is $20 for the session, like for the 4 weeks for members, and $30 for the 4 weeks for non-members. So it's still offered to non-members, it's just a different rate. So we have had several of our county people buy memberships because they still do lots in Strathmore, so they access other things as well.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Rocky. Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair to Shannon, can you maybe expand in front of us the relationship with the skateboarders outside? In your own words, this past year, you're trying to work with them instead of against them.
Yeah, I think our relationship has
It's getting better,
more
right?
positive.
Yep.
Anytime we're there, when the weather's not nice and not like this, we try and keep the doors open. The kids can come in. We have a little canteen that we run through there, so they can come in and buy water, get chips. We also monitor them pretty closely if there's stuff going on. A lot of times, especially during summer camp when we're there all day, we'll notice the kids that aren't going home. They're there all day. We'll often bring them in and feed them something because they're not going anywhere else. If we have leftovers that come, from the bakery, when you provide us with that, we usually open that up to them and provide that. So we've also had lots of kids coming in to inquire about different things. Lots of the kids that are using the skateboard park are coming in at lunchtime, even if it's just to hang out and eat. They're using some of the equipment that's there. So I think it's a lot more positive. We did have some vandalism in the summer with graffiti on the skate park, but it has decreased, I would say, quite a bit since those cameras went up.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that we're monitoring them. So that lots of comments I hear from the kids, the cameras are there now, and different things like that. So I think that's had a positive impact there as well. We're also seeing a lot more families coming to use the park now. Parents coming in and actually sitting with their kids while they're using the park. So I think it's positive. We still have some issues, but I think it's better than it was.
Any further questions? Shannon, if I might, you say you have a junior chef program.
Yes.
How do you arrange that? Do you have a chef from one of the...
Not right now. We have had other people that have been involved as volunteers. Right now it's just one of our facilitators. And we utilize, as a base of our program, was a junior chef model that the Boys and Girls Club had, because we started under their umbrella. And it has different lessons set out. So it has the recipes that they're going to cook, as well as some education pieces on etiquette and table manners and utensils and that sort of thing. And we've just built on that. So now our program is broken up into different themes. So for right now, they're doing sweets and desserts. So their recipe would have to do with that theme, and then they bring in different teaching strategies as well. And so they're learning something while they're there. And then, but yeah, we'd love to have, actual chefs involved. But.
And when would you hold something like that in the just after school?
Yeah, it runs right now. We have Monday nights. It goes from 5:30 till 5 till 6:30, and then again on Tuesday nights for the older group.
And you mentioned you have something in regards to extreme kids.
Right.
Is that sort of an extreme sport that you're...
No, it's just a sports program, and our whole focus behind it was to try and involve other sports associations in our community, working really hard to try and partner with different associations. So it's our way of getting some kids involved in physical activity that maybe can't afford $300 for soccer or the fees for hockey, but still getting them involved in it a little bit. So they can come. It's a 6-week course that we do for $20. And they learn a different sport every 2 weeks.
And if they have some trouble in regards to coming up with $20?
We have a subsidy program, yeah. We so far, have gotten funding from Prairie Merchant over the years. That's where we put that money towards as a subsidy program. When Brett Wilson's, it's just come out, so we're applying for it again this year, but that's where we've historically put that money towards as a subsidy program for them. We also have access to Jumpstart funding for programs like that as well. So they will help subsidize those programs for families that can't afford it as well.
Yes. Councilor Field.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention, Shannon, we have a new chef at the high school who has done amazing work getting the kids away from fried foods like poutine and things, and he's brought in a wide variety of salads and different menu items, so he might be one that we could talk to as far as a junior chef. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is we have tried so far one night, we came up with the idea of a thing called Twilight Sports, where I've seen it in major cities to try to get the youth off the streets on a Friday night. So from 6:30 to 8:30 last Friday we opened it up. The unfortunate thing was we had 5 adult supervisors and no youth came. So we haven't given up yet, and we're gonna do that again. We thought we would do this on a quarterly basis, so we're gonna try it again in February.
Yeah, that group is a really hard one to get in with, and it's whether if something's on TV that night, then they choose to stay. So we're hoping if we get some activity-based stuff, if we can go to a hockey game or something like that, that'll tie them in, and then we can start planning. We had them all come. There was 11 of them came a few weeks ago and did a brainstorming of what things they would like to do. So, and Twilight Sports was one of them. They just didn't show up there, so.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Shannon.
No bylaws in regards to our agenda today. Old business is snow removal policy 7.1.
Good evening.
Good
evening.
Sorry I was unable to attend last week.
Right.
The discussion in regards to this was prompted because of a question that Councillor Blokeland brought up last council meeting. And did you have any further items that you wanted to discuss in regards to that with
Well, Your Worship,
Director of Operations?
if I may, maybe I could just go through what I was going through last week through the Jesse here. We obviously just had a discussion on it because you weren't here. And I was basically speaking on behalf of quite a few downtown business people. This is in regards to the snowstorm, what, 2-3 weeks ago? By the way, you guys did an excellent job on this one the last, not only downtown, but the entire town. It was very well done.
Great, thank you.
The business people downtown are trying to tell you how to do it, obviously. They find they have a continual problem downtown. The snow gets pushed to one side of the street, that creates problems. Pushing it to the other side of the street is going to create problems. Pushing it in the middle, I guess, doesn't work. Several of the downtown business people suggested to me somehow if we could figure out a way without increasing the costs or anything to that nature, if we could get rid of the snow and put it in Kinsman Park or put it somewhere. By pushing it to one side of the street, some of those windrows are getting pretty steep, and watching people trying to get out of their vehicles and hop over these things, it doesn't work. You're completely blocking the sidewalks off. The idea of punching accesses into the windrows, that was good until people park the cars in it, and then that defeats that purpose. On behalf of the business people down there, we were just wondering if there was any other possible way we could do it. I did notice Monday morning here when Dwight called me, we piled some snow up in a spot. Now that kind of looks like a better idea too, if we could pile it up in a few spots and keep the sidewalks open up and down the street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was part of a lesson learned from the previous snowfall one 3 weeks ago with this most recent one, trying to maintain business access through the time it takes from plowing to removal, I guess, right? And in trying to keep business accesses open. And that was, you know, it worked to an extent, but unfortunately this last one was too big to really, I drove down there, when was that, Sunday? Or Monday, I guess, and the drift on the north side of the roadway in front of your shop and other, I mean, it was.
Oh, you're talking about this weekend?
This past weekend.
Well, we're not concerned, we're not even.
Yeah.
That's something that just happened, and we're talking about 1-2 weeks ago.
Right.
Where they push it to the side.
This past one, we started to pile
Yep.
in front, like on the north side, ahead of the snow just becoming too much and overwhelming the entire area, right?
There was nobody upset this week. I mean, you guys did the best you could, and that's just the way it is when there's this amount of snow that comes down.
Right. Yeah. It was quite an event. We definitely acknowledged that last event, what we had done just wasn't going to be a success, and the timing of the storm also played a significant role in what was done. And unfortunately, with the number of staff that we have, and you know, and not operating a weekend shift, we depend on our staff to be, in essence, on call, but we don't formally have an on-call procedure other than a single on-call person. And it happened on a Saturday, carried through to about midday Sunday, and we tried the signage with the tagging and towing and in that previous event, and we needed the 24-hour notice to get the vehicles removed, and so those signs went out on Sunday for Monday, and it just it all came together that it had a windrow there Sunday and Monday, and was a real challenge for the businesses.
I think the upsetting part on that particular incident was they all expected removal or Monday morning, I guess, and it didn't happen until Monday evening.
I don't know, yeah, I saw the video from last meeting, and I don't know where that expectation would have arisen from, because we don't typically do removal in the early mornings. We've done evening removals for the last couple of years. Yep. It's just based on our staff availability and the timing for removal. We've tried to do it in the evenings and have done that in the evenings. So I guess I was hoping that we could have done it on Sunday evening in that particular snowfall ahead of the businesses opening on Monday. Unfortunately, with the storm, we would have had to then have signed it Saturday night, and we were mid-storm and didn't know when it was going to let up, and so it continued into Sunday. And not to make excuses, but that was in essence what happened. It got signed Sunday evening after things slowed down and we could catch our breath. But definitely agree that there's some opportunities to do things differently in the downtown, along with I think what we saw in this last event was the timing of this snowfall definitely helped. I won't say helped, but we could get in Monday night, and the inconvenience for the business owners was on Monday in essence. But acknowledging it was such a significant storm that Sunday was a write-off for basically the whole town as it was. Right? So,
well, just as long as you're aware, nobody was.
Yeah,
nobody's upset about this.
I appreciate the feedback. Yeah, and yeah, definitely. I think the guys did a great job this go around in terms of that as well. On the removal from the downtown, it's always been a challenge. We've tried to. We've targeted that evening, like within a 24-hour time frame of a snowfall. In some cases, it's gone into the next evening, and that could be based on staff availability, but also just timing of when the snow stops. Is there a thought that within that, like this time we felt we were there within the 24-hour, or at least the next night after a snowfall? Is that a reasonable expectation from the business owners downtown, or is it that it needs to happen faster? Basically,
well, I think what happened this time, Monday morning, you built a fairly decent-sized hill of snow down there between the theater and the credit union, and that kept at that point of the day, it kept the sidewalks open. Obviously, it got deteriorated after that, but.
Yeah, and it was all the way in the future. All the way from Value Drug Mart.
Yeah, in the future, if you can maybe look at more of those kind of ideas, maybe that keeps the sidewalks open without the windrow sitting there.
Yeah, we looked. One of the things that we've also talked about, the grader, like as we windrow, I guess our ability to windrow is off the blade of the grader and off the plow trucks, right? And there isn't a lot of storage capacity on the blade itself. So when it comes to stacking and piling material, then you jump into loaders and you get into a loader conversation. The loaders, we get into kind of a catch-22 because based on our staffing availability from a pushing perspective, you almost need two pieces of equipment, right? You need a grader to windrow it, but then you need a loader with a bigger push bucket on it, or a push blade, or a box blade to push that large volume of snow into piles and get an effective push on that. I've talked to our operations manager, should we be looking at potentially getting a different blade or a box blade for our loader to be able to handle a bigger volume of snow, so that we could theoretically, as we're scraping the downtown, be piling it in larger volumes than what a loader bucket is really capable of, because you're spending too much time. We get into panic, not so much panic mode, but we're stretched staffing wise to have a dedicated person downtown that's got to change equipment midstream and carry two pieces of equipment downtown becomes a bit of an issue. So we've looked at how we could potentially gain some efficiency with a different box blade or bucket on the front of the loader, as you see in parking lots, right? When you look at the equipment they use at the Walmart parking lot, right? They've got that monster box blade that you're able to push that much more volume of snow and pile it.
Can we borrow that?
What's that?
Can we borrow that?
Well, they're not, relatively speaking, those aren't expensive attachments for a loader, right? It's nowhere near, our snowblower was a couple $100,000, right? We're not talking anything like that. A box blade is relatively inexpensive and could help with some volume management downtown, right? And managing that windrow. So.
I'm just bringing this up as a counselor for my fellow counselors to know this, because I get half a dozen business people downtown. As soon as the snowflakes start coming down, they're already in my shop talking to me. So
yeah.
I just I told them I'd bring it up and we discuss it.
What we've done this year to try and help with that is we get snowfalls over the course of an evening. We've started, if we've got visibility to our forecasted snowfall, we've identified 2 staff minimum to come in at 5:30 in the morning, and we're currently dedicating one of those staff to doing windrowing and snow removal, snow plowing, I guess more so downtown. And the second staff member is addressing the primary 1 and 2 routes and the emergency services. So we've got a dedicated employee to the downtown currently in the event that there's a snowfall overnight, with then the rest of the staff coming in the after hours, the evening of, for removal. So we've been windrowing it in the morning to come back in the evening to get it, but that's more so because we don't have the staff numbers to remove it in the morning as we're windrowing it. We would need at least, we'd have to either contract trucks, or we'd need 5 of our staff to come in at 5:30 in the morning to remove it prior to the businesses opening on an morning after an evening snowfall, which would then take everybody off of those priority 1 and 2 routes to focus in essence on the downtown.
And again, we're not trying to jump the queue list to get up there.
Yeah. And I guess that's really a conversation is, in essence, for us to do a removal, based on our staffing numbers, we need all of our staff to do 1 removal crew, right? You need a guy on a girl on a grader, we need then a person in the snowblower, and we've got 3 trucks, right? So that's 5 of our staff. If we have anybody on holidays, we're stretched and can't effectively do it, and we're hiring truck. There is an opportunity for us to contact our contractors and say, if we have 2 staff members willing to come in at 5:30 in the morning after a snowfall, plus 3 to 4 trucks, contract it out, we can still focus some attention on the 1s and 2s as we currently do. We're maybe bringing 3 to 4 staff in at 5:30 to do removal after a snowfall, if that was council's wish, I guess, relative to the downtown removal. We've started to think, to meet the expectations of the downtown businesses and to, really cooperate and help the downtown businesses succeed. It's almost a bigger effort than what we can do ourselves. And while we also focus our attention on the other roadways in town.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see the contractors in town out at 5:30, for us to do a removal downtown, with the snow blower, windrowing, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, when we do it at night, it takes us 4 hours minimum. If we have a 5 centimeter snowfall, we're starting at, we'll get the grader out at 7:30, and we're not getting out of there till 11:30 at night. So for us to start at 5:30 and be done before the businesses open and the people start to get downtown, which we need to do, we've seen it fail if we're not out of there before the businesses open, because it's just a safety hazard to have the wind or the snowblower going and the trucks in and out of there. It's a challenge to get it all out of there.
Oh, for sure.
In a, say, a 3-hour window, right? Because I'd say the latest we want to be down there doing removal is 8:30 in the morning, right? I don't think we want to be down there later than 8:30 with customers at, the post office and the drugstore and otherwise, right? So it's a tough scenario. I think the answer, I agree, is that there's a pushing element to it that I think is an opportunity, not so much a windrow, removal, trucks, all that kind of stuff. I think if we can find a way to pilot that also manages some of the amateur hour appearance of some of that, because we still want to portray a good, vibrant business community. These piles that we put in the middle of this snowfall, I don't think portray the best. It's a nice stopgap for a time when we're struggling to kind of keep our heads above water, but it doesn't portray the best image of downtown when there's a pile in the middle of an intersection that's
When you look at the amount of snow that came down.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
And I'm sure there's not one business person downtown or on 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th Avenue that's complaining about the service. They're just looking at procedure.
Sure, and how we could do things differently. And I definitely
that's all we wanted
that.
to bring up.
I definitely think there's an opportunity to do things a little better than what we saw the previous snowfall. And yeah, definitely agree.
Thanks, Jesse.
Your Worship, to the Director. First of all, I want to thank you guys very much for all of your work this weekend. I've had numerous people complimenting the exceptional job you guys did, so thank you very much. The City of Calgary, they have a snow route. Is there any validity to exercising that route or going down that avenue here in Strathmore?
We looked at that this year. It had been brought forward as a suggestion previously, and we've been looking at it now since the city tried it, with their pilot project here in the past. The challenge for us, I guess, in terms of that is the time. The city has the labor and the resources and the equipment available to really tackle their 1s and 2s, and their snow routes are focused on their priority 1s and 2s.
Right.
We looked at what it would take for us to put, say, I guess a snow route or snow event in place that would, I guess, not permit parking for a 72-hour period, and we felt, and that's what the city is, right? It's 72 hours. We don't have the staff to go 72 hours nonstop. They have a rotational shift pattern where they can bounce people in and out, and they're going those 72 hours, and they'll hit every roadway within those 72 hours. We looked at how would we do a snow event that was only, say, like a day, or during the day, right? That it was, if we only have one shift, could we say we have a snow event during the day for the next 3 days, no vehicles on these roadways? And that was one thing that we kind of thought about. That would be significantly different than the city, where maybe residents were able to park during the evenings because we wouldn't have snow removal happening during the evenings or after. And we started, we're between 9 and 3 basically now for snow removal, right? So there's a 6-hour snow removal window there. It's a tough communication to residents, to say snow event, you can only park here after 3 and not before, or not after 9, and things along those lines. And it's on these routes but not those routes. And we just decided that we weren't quite ready this year to do that. And we still, it's definitely something that we can look at and are continuing to look at. But I think our snow event would be much different than what the city's is, where they just ban all parking and go, right? And I think we would need, for instance, if we had an event like we had this time, for us to do our priority 1s and 2s removal wise with our own crew would take us at least 10 days, right? It's so, you get into a real budgeting financial discussion, and that's what we're into now with this current event, right? Is we've got, I think it's up to 8 8 trucks today and 3 loaders. We had a grader on the weekend helping us out. Right now we're at about $1,000 an hour in contracted service, right? So if we have 8 pieces, or if we're going, say, 6 hours, that's $6,000 a day that we're currently exhausting on contracted service. So it's not a cheap endeavor. And for us to tackle our 1s and 2s, we would need to contract some help to get it done in 3 days even. So, you know, per event, then we're looking at upwards of, you know, $10,000 or so. Where we try to find that equilibrium right now where it's a reasonable expectation for us to do a lot of that work ourselves with some contracted help, but not, let's just open it up to all the contractors to come into town and send us your bill when you're done type thing, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but definitely snow events are something we're considering.
Awesome. Thank you.
Councilor Riffle?
Yeah, through the chair to Jesse, getting back to the downtown, first off, I did send you an email this afternoon thanking you and your staff for a great job that you've done so far. I've had a lot of compliments from people in the community the last day or two. They seem to go non-stop here, even during the storm. Kept all the streets open. Getting back to the downtown, would it work, or would it be worth a try to, when you're windrowing, to windrow it over to the south side of the street, so that all the angle parking stalls remain open? And if you moved it over to the south side of the street and put up some no parking signs so that there would be no parking on the south side, and make some access points to the sidewalk on that side, and that way you could clean the street even on a movie night, because the snow would all be on one side of the street, all the people would be parked on the other side of the street, and you would be able to work fairly much unrestricted from other traffic coming through there. Would that be something that could be considered, or?
Yes, absolutely. That was after that last event. We'd received that feedback that was potentially something to consider. And this one was a little too big for us to. We ended up juggling the windrow between the two just because it was almost too big to put on one side versus the other. But yes, I think that is something we can look at, and I'd maybe pose a question to Councillor Blockland if that's something that the south side businesses would view as a negative, like it, in terms of the parallel parking stalls, there's maybe a dozen stalls along there that we would be losing, but we'd be improving the access. I guess overall, we would look at doing something like punching a couple of walkways through the windrow to enable pedestrian. One of the items that I'd mentioned to our CAO was we get a lot more jaywalking and people crossing the road, but you know, that happens today as it is. It's not really a big difference from what happens down there as it stands. And I do agree that I think the impact of that is less than splitting it like we do today. And if we were to do that and say no parking, so we don't get those people that will come up and parallel park anyway and block the driving lane.
Yeah.
That could be an alternative. At
Because
least
that still leaves both driving lanes open.
Correct.
And it maximizes your parking. Because when you have the windrow on the north side of the street and all the angle parking, you get these quad cabs with the long wheelbase trucks and vans, that type of stuff. They're halfway into the driving lane.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that was what we saw with that last event. We had there was one quad cab with a regular box on it with a hitch hanging off, and it basically took it down to one lane. You had to wait and yield to oncoming traffic to get around.
It wouldn't have bothered me as much if it hadn't been one of the realtors. Was there most of the day. You know, why couldn't you park somewhere else?
Yeah. I'd like, I don't know, I'd welcome Councillor Blockland's thoughts on that as a representative, I guess, of the downtown business community. If on 2nd Ave and 3rd Ave, both of those roadways, we were to try doing something like that in the next event that isn't 20 centimeter snowfall like we had on the weekend with drifting, but a 5 centimeter event where we windrow it and block parking on the south side of
Oh, I love that idea. It keeps my side clean. But I'm going to have 6 different business people from the other side coming to talk to me. So.
Yeah.
That's about all there is on the other side.
Well, I'm going to have one in there for sure, but it's a problem, Jesse.
I agree. Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah.
We'll never satisfy them all.
Thank
Have to try and please the majority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All we can do.
And I think if we look at the number of stalls that would be impacted by that suggestion, right? Overall, if I forget what the number was that we had in angle parking along that roadway, so may remember from our last estimation when we looked at converting it to parallel, but it probably represents, I don't know, less than 20% of the stalls if we were to do that along the roadway. Wouldn't be a major impact, maybe.
Well, just a suggestion.
A small inconvenience for a 24-hour period until we can get in there to remove.
Yeah, and that way you have your window on one side of the street,
That's
and your cleanup will take half as long.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, definitely agree.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Jesse, I just had just a question with regards to having 2 major snow events this year, $6,000 a day. Where does that put us with regards to using the existing budget?
Prior to our previous event, we had spent approximately $7,500 of our $50,000 other contracted service budget. Now, out of the event that we had a few weeks ago, we just received that bill today, actually, for our contracted service, and that was approximately $12,000. So we're a little over half of our other contracted service budget spend at this point. Now we're going to definitely watch that fairly closely here and see.
You got to respond.
We do have to respond, and we're trying to also get the best efficiency out of some of our contractors as well. I noticed today one of our contractors was focused on a very insignificant pile of snow that could sit for a period of time and we could get to later, rather than some of these other more major roadways that are in rough shape. So we're trying to manage the contractors and have them focused on more priority roadways but also residential roadways. And I think there was an email that I'd sent today, and hopefully council had a chance to look at it. We're trying to focus our removal efforts on the priority 1s and 2s, and then get into the residentials with some of the pile effort that we're doing with the intersections, and get in and remove those piles as best we can.
Well, I would say thank you, and I would say in a community of this size that your handle on this is extraordinary, and we saw that in this last event, and it was really impressive, and I thank you for the information today. It was really helpful.
Thank you.
And secondly, one of the conversations that we've had around this table, and I don't pretend to have any handle on it at all, is changing the parking or the streets to one-way in the downtown area. And as a good engineer, do you have any insight into that? I would, maybe you don't even want to go there. But it's certainly something that council has talked about. And I know when it was looked at many years ago, and I went back several years, about 15 years to be exact, there was talk at that time of making the one-way down the main street going east, which at that time maybe made sense, but it was certainly not well accepted at that time. But today we have a different traffic flow in our community, and it might make sense to come west on that street and then plan around that. And it just might have an impact, a positive impact on snow removal as well. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's I've kind of been following somewhat at the city of Calgary's initiatives.
That's what I looked at too.
And they've been changing some of their one-way streets to
and putting in the loops.
And also even single lanes of counterflow, so that
you
know they've got one lane going one direction and 3 the other. Right? It's an interesting activity in a major center where they're doing that. I'm from Halifax, and Halifax has 2 roads downtown. One goes one way and the other goes the other way. And
one goes uphill.
Yeah, they all go uphill. So yeah, it definitely as the town grows and the traffic volume increases, it's a real challenge to manage the different flows at different times.
Right.
One other consideration, without complicating the discussion too much, is do you go to a flexible lane system where it's in the morning it's one direction, in the afternoon it's another, and we put up lights that change it, right?
One of the things that Councillor Sobel
throw that matzo ball out there.
That Councillor Sobel has brought up before that I think has tremendous value in speaking to increased density in the downtown and the hoped for and planned for further increased density in the downtown, that it will become an issue for safety, and that one-way streets certainly have a history of reducing problems and potential for problems. So I think that that's something to look at, but for another day.
Just one additional thought. With the depending on which road was designated, which direction, it definitely, we have roads that are on the cusp of failure without improvements. So traffic-wise, as those volumes continue to increase, when we steer additional traffic from one roadway onto another, it starts to create failures.
Absolutely.
And I think, just using an example, if we were to designate 2nd Ave as an eastbound direction, and we were having westbound traffic in the AM come to 2nd Ave at the 4-way at Lakeside and turn south to get onto the highway, we would definitely want to look at an easier flow of traffic for that lane. And I'd want to look at studies that would say, do we do something differently with Kinsman, right? With that parking lot at Kinsman, and do you redirect traffic differently rather than a 4-way stop? Do you have advanced arrows on a signal system that help give that AM traffic more flow?
Or a traffic circle.
That's a whole other. I don't know what the answer is, but there's definitely a lot of discussion that, and I'd say, there'd be studies and I think real investigation that would need to happen to look into the.
Well, as someone who lives in the downtown, the increase in traffic has been significant in the last couple of years.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is a good thing for our community.
You bet.
Thank you.
Councillor Ripple, you had something further?
Thanks. Through the chair to Jesse, we're talking the snow removal budget here, and that budget that you're currently working on, is that the budget for 2013, or is that a 13 and 14 your budget?
That's just the 13 budget.
13, yeah. So the because at some point we switch over to the 2014 year, which would become January, I believe.
Correct.
And so if we don't have any significant snowfalls, we'll have a bigger budget to work with next fall. But then if we get a few good snow dumps, then we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel come fall.
Yeah, this year we were lucky in the early, from January to say March, where we didn't have major events, and so I think our spend, I mentioned $7,500 before this first major event. That was the first real contract service effort that we took on, was this mid-November event that we had. So we spent about $7,500 in contracted service in January to March of this year. And then now with the 2 events that we've had here, November, December-ish, then we'll be up against it in the 50,000 for other contracted efforts, and also our sand and salt supplies. We have a budget for that as well that we're right up against on.
But did I understand you right? We had 70 something in the budget remaining for 2013.
50,000 is what the budget was.
The other contracted service was 50,000, and our sand, salt, and other purchases is another 22. So we have a $72,000 total minus our staffing numbers, and we've spent to date approximately 20,000 of that total between other contracted services, sand, salt, and other purchases, so.
But
for
from
that-
January 1st,
That will reset and.
yes.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that that there's no more money coming this winter.
Correct. We're trying to manage within that budget as best we can. One thing that I guess I'd discuss is if we're getting close to where we're going to exhaust that budget, we don't want to just drop everything and say we're done and we'll come in January and finish up type thing. So obviously the residents wouldn't support that. So we may, in the event that we find we're getting close to exhausting that budget, we'll come forward to council at likely the last one more meeting before the end of the year. And if we find we're running a wrong way on our budgets, we may request additional funds just so we can complete the effort. And that's assuming we don't have another major event before the end of the year.
Basically, it's advancing funds.
Correct.
Patrick?
Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. Just a quick comment, Jesse. Social media is very big these days, especially when a storm is. I mean, there's a lot of people on the thing, and I guess I'm thankful that most of the people that are on the thing realize that we live in North America, not South America, and that we get snow. I just the repeating comment I keep hearing that I kind of think is nice is how fortunate people feel that living in Strathmore rather than in Calgary. Nothing against Calgary, of course, but I think our snow removal system is a touch better. So kudos to your crew and thank you. There's a lot of people are really appreciative of the effort you guys are making. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Maybe just a comment on that. I had a funny story today. Our operations manager came to me and he'd received a call yesterday from a very irate resident with respect to, not meeting expectations in road clearing. And this person called back today and basically apologized and said how sorry he was for the message that he'd left and how bad he felt. And our operations manager asked what changed between yesterday and today. And he said, I went to Airdrie.
Oh, that's funny.
So, no offense to our friends in Airdrie.
No.
But I think, I hope I definitely appreciate the feedback. And thank you very much, Council, for all your support in the last few days. It has, our staff have been really going above and beyond to deliver on this. And they've been sacrificing a lot of family time and a lot of personal time to keep the roads opened up and ensure that people can get around. So I definitely appreciate the feedback, and it's all our public works and parks and operations staff doing that work. So I'll be sure to pass that on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Councillor Bulkman, are you happy with the
Oh, yes, very much
the
so.
response in regards to what's going to be happening on Main Street?
Yep. Thank you very much, Jesse.
Thank you.
We'll consider Main Street and that issue closed then. The other issue was that Councillor Rempel brought up changing the street signs to 8:30 in regards to the residential clearing. Has that issue been resolved?
Through the email.
I believe it was, as long as council are supportive of an 8:30 start time. I think our CAO has indicated that it would be appreciated if it'd be possible to have an 8:30 start as opposed to the suggested 9, just to give enforcement some time so our start time doesn't slide. We're pretty tight now with just a 6-hour work window, so we're trying to get as much done in those 6 hours as we can. It'd be great if we don't lose more time in terms of the snow removal, with the eye on safety and with making sure we're not operating that equipment around when there's kids coming out of school and in those residential areas as we're doing the removal. So we have we've started the conversation with our signing contractor. So we have a local contractor in town that helps us with some of our signs when needed. And so we've contacted him for some help with changing our signs. Unfortunately, the signs are out now. We needed to get them out and quick, and they're out for Friday. They indicate 8 o'clock as they are today, but as soon as we get the tabs that will go over and say 8:30, we'll get the signage amended. And I haven't had an opportunity to talk to our enforcement folks, but that kind of shortens our enforcement window a little bit, so it'll be a bit of a challenge, but what I indicated to our staff is if we can identify where there's a problem area with vehicles and maybe start away from that to give our enforcement folks an opportunity to address those concerns, it might help with that enforcement.
I guess, just one question through the chair. So for the signs that are up now that say 8 o'clock, will enforcement start at 8 o'clock or will it still start at 8:30?
I can't, in terms of the enforcement aspect, I can't really comment, I guess, but it's difficult to communicate to the residents that the signs say one thing. And
yeah, I appreciate that.
I would say, in terms of our enforcement, I don't think we need to be out at 8 o'clock to do the enforcement, but are people going to see that sign and think they need to move their vehicle before 8? It's tough to get the word out that, yeah, the signs say 8, but really we're not coming until 8:30 type thing. So, but I would say that we can probably start, with the enforcement activity and this next removal at 8:30.
Thank you.
Speaking on behalf of council, I'm sure. Thank the Public Works for all the hard work and the dedication they did during that last event. Thank you.
I definitely will. Yes.
Councilor Rumpel.
Thank you. I have 3 questions here for Jesse. Can those signs not be changed so that they read 8:30?
Just with some temporary...
Whatever, yeah.
It can, yeah. It's just the staff and the effort to... We've got 40, 50 odd signs. Well, actually more. We've put out 100 of those signs. So we've got to go double-sided. So there's 200. So we'd have to kind of do a Mickey Mouse
I understand.
tape job on those. But I mean, we could just be more effort on our staff to change that, I guess. The contractor has indicated that, in reality, that he can probably have those tabs to us by early next week. So then it's just slapping those on over top of the 8 o'clock. So I'd say probably within the next, within the first 3 areas that we'll be doing removal, we'll still be operating at that 8 a.m.
Oh, I see, okay.
And then about midstream in this current event, we'll have those signs.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that's it. Thank you.
If that's
Second question then, do you have a schedule of where you start, like clearing subdivisions and progressing through the town, or?
It changes.
Okay.
Yeah, based on one of the learnings that we've actually had in this last event, we put signs in Strathaven and forgot to consider the garbage day. And so we asked everybody to remove their vehicles from the road. Where do they go? They go in the alley. And then the alleys are plugged for the garbage men, and they can't get through the alleys because the vehicles are in the alley. So depending on the day when we're doing removal, it moves around. And we also try not to start in the same community every time, so that you're not waiting 6 days or 7 days before we get back to that community.
The reason for the question is that some people have indicated that it would help them to know in advance, sort of they're going out of town for a few days or whatever, to make sure that their vehicle will be off the street during that time.
Right.
But now they never know until 24 hours before it happens.
Yeah.
So but I can see where it causes all kinds of problems coordinating these things. And then third question, your Schedule A of the policy is that on the website?
Yes, it is.
So and it's quite easily accessible.
It's under, we have it under the bylaw and policy section on the website, and the very last one on the page, sorted alphabetically, winter street maintenance policy is on that first page.
So just as easy to find as anything else on there.
Any other bylaw. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nothing else?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jesse.
Next item on our agenda is the Plus 55 Games Committee grant request. And Councillor Sobel, did you?
Thank you,
like to
Your Worship.
address it?
As Council requested, I did ask the chair of the Strathmore 2000 or the 2015 Alberta Plus 55 Games, rather, to supply some information pertaining to a budget that would cover the $10,000 that the committee is requesting as an advance from the town. And I think I've supplied council with all that information and to administration. I guess the only comment, it's fairly self-explanatory. The only comment I would make is in regards to the items 2 and 3 on their the retreat and Banff accommodations. This is not a retreat in Banff that we're talking about. I just want to make that very clear. The retreat itself is for all directors. It's at a hall just south of town, and there's a number of issues that have to be spoken of and discussed and decided on, such as logistics. Some of the logistics, a logo, a theme for the games, programs for the games. So it was decided that one-day retreat, not an overnight one, but just during the day, to basically brainstorm and discuss these items would be very advantageous for the crew. The Banff accommodations has to do with sending someone to the winter games as a representative and to acquire some knowledge from how the Alberta Plus 55 Winter Games are held, and return with a report to the directors. And I know that our representative on the board, Tracy Simpson, is present. So if there's any other questions in regards to anything on this, I'm sure she'd be more than willing to respond. Deputy Mayor Peterson, did you have a question?
I'm just looking at, when I was reading this earlier, Councillor Sobel, I think in the minutes of our last meeting, did we ask for a time when it would be paid off? And I mean, it doesn't need to be specific, but I don't think that says it in here specifically. And I understand that it is tacit in the information, but not stated. Am I correct?
I'm just rereading this. I thought I had read somewhere that it would be, well, at any rate, the money is anticipated to be received from the foundation in March or April.
So
as soon as it's received, then the money would be returned to the town, of course.
So in your understanding, the statement in the second line that says initial expenses until our grant funding from Alberta Sport, that suffices for that?
Yes.
In that case, Your Worship, I'd be prepared to move the motion that Council provide a $10,000 advance to the 55 Plus Games Committee with the conditions that the funds be paid back to the town once the grant funding for the games has been received by the committee.
Discussion? Councillor Reppel?
Yeah, through the chair to Tracy. On this, the Banff accommodations, you'd probably be the person that would be going there, or is it?
No, I won't be going.
Okay.
What it is it's an opportunity for some of the directors who've never seen the games to go and have more of a visual opportunity and to meet with some of the directors from those games. So we're looking at sending about 3. We haven't picked which ones yet, but it won't be me, no.
Okay. I was just wondering, has there been discussion to date as to whether or not we're going to be bidding on some winter games here in the future?
We'd really struggle to host any winter games, mostly because we don't have any downhill skiing opportunities. And downhill skiing is a major component of both the youth and the senior games. So it would be very unlikely that we would get them. That being said, we haven't really discussed it. No. But,
Okay.
we're going to try and get through
I was
this.
just wondering why we're sending somebody there too.
Because lots of the aspects of the games are the same. Things like accommodation, food service, registration, results, all those things. It doesn't matter what the sport is. They're held the same and they're ran the same way, so there's lots of learning opportunities for some of our directors.
Did we already go to the summer games this last summer?
Myself and Donalda and the previous mayor attended the Barnhead Westlock games in July of this year. It was a great opportunity. We learned a lot, but it was just the three of us, and we were quite overwhelming. So now that we have our full directors, they can go and get more specifics on their areas that they're going to be in charge of. And the Barnhead Westlock games were very kind of just big picture for us.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to add a couple more storms like this, and we may have our hill, our ski hill. But just to further on that, you have to appreciate that there's I think there's 18 or 19 directors in all, and they're very enthusiastic about this whole event. But unfortunately, they've never been a director in a games before, so they're feeling just a little intimidated, perhaps, and are looking for some form of education and instruction so that they can become a little bit more comfortable in the job. And I think everyone on the team would benefit from 2 or 3 going to any of the summer games, because once again, as Tracy so properly put it, it's all run by the same people, so the concept is always the same. It doesn't matter if it's summer or winter. The ideas are all the same, and the way they deal with the directors are dealing with their issues are all the same.
There's also going to be the youth summer games in Airdrie later in 2014 that we'll be sending some directors to. That will be more relevant to things they can learn at a summer game. So there's going to be more opportunities for them as well. That's why we're only choosing to send a handful to Banff at this time.
Yes, Your Worship. The Director of Corporate Services just mentioned to me that we can't make a loan without a bylaw. The bylaw's got to be advertised for 2 weeks. Exactly what we did for the Chamber of Commerce. So we've got to follow the procedure.
Thank you very much. We will follow procedure.
We could do first reading. I think we can write one. I think we can write a bylaw. I think we're capable of doing that.
Can we write a bylaw before the end of the meeting and do a preparation, do it first reading?
Mel's pretty fast at that. Okay. Let's
Councilor
go on.
Raffle, please.
Yeah, through the chair to our CAO.
I'll withdraw.
Is this considered a loan or is this an advance? This is just an advance on the funds. It's not a loan. Because a check is made out to the town of Strathmore, isn't it? When it comes, we just...
No. When we get funding from the foundation, it is made out to the Strathmore Alberta 55 Plus Game Society Board of Directors. It won't be made out to the town. It's not. It's the money never actually comes to the municipality. It always just goes through the society.
When? ADQ? Pretty close. No. Well, I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be, but
Yeah, they should have had it
we're
last.
trying to go ahead and get ahead and do some things here. Your Worship, I wonder if we could take a 5-minute adjournment. So the recess, if we could just maybe look into this a little bit more.
Sure. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Order. And we will, what's the term when you skip an item on the agenda and go to the 8.2 Strathmore Hospital?
We have a motion. Your Worship, I am prepared to withdraw the motion.
Thank
at
you.
this point.
Thank you.
Until,
Do we need to?
yeah, just.
Okay. Motion is withdrawn then. And then we will skip the budget item, 8.1, and go to Strathmore Hospital. And Councillor Sobel, would you be so kind as to address that issue?
Sure thing, Your Worship. I'd be happy to. So on November 21st, came to my attention recently that on November 21st, MLA for Strathmore, Brooks Jason Hale, was in question period in the legislature, and posed a question, actually posed 3 questions. The first and third was to the Minister of Infrastructure, Mr. Drysdale. And I guess my concern that I bring to council at this time is the response by Minister Drysdale to the question, which to be quite honest with you, I found very respectful and very on point in regards to concerns about our hospital. And I'll just read from this is the exact words that were used. Mr. Hale, well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Strathmore Hospital is the second busiest rural emergency room in the province. Since constructed in 1985, the hospital has not been modified or expanded. The emergency room sees 31 to 33,000 patients every year. Alberta Health Services' own capital plan says, and I quote, many of these facilities are functionally and physically obsolete, creating increased health and safety issues. To the Minister of Infrastructure, when are you going to fix this? Mr. Drysdale responds with, well, Mr. Speaker, here we go again asking for more. They want new hospitals, they want new schools, they want to cut the budget. They just keep asking for things, Mr. Speaker. 1985 isn't that old about building. There are lots of hospitals and schools way older than that. Whether they believe it or not, they don't seem to believe anything we say. Alberta Health Services is given a budget to maintain their facilities. They're given plenty of money a year from infrastructure, and it's up to Alberta Health to maintain their hospitals. The next question goes to Minister Horn, Minister of Health Horn, and to his credit, Minister Horn responds, and I thought in a respectful way, saying that he's fully aware of the issues at the Alberta Hospital and at Strathmore Hospital rather, and to quote him, he's on the case. So this is something that within his vision and his ministry is effectively looking at this issue. Then the last question goes again to Mr. Drysdale, and some of these. One of the comments that I remember quite well from him was that if we're the second busiest emergency room in Alberta, then somebody is busier, so what are we complaining about? And it was the whole tone, Your Worship, that really concerned me. I felt as a person from Strathmore, I was actually embarrassed and disappointed in Mr. Drysdale's comments. I took it upon myself to, as a citizen of Strathmore, to write a letter to the Premier outlining my regret in how our hospital and how our situation, which has been taking place for years and years and years and years, is looked upon by a minister in the Premier's cabinet. And I would just like to see if Council would like to forward a letter in regards to these comments as a whole to the Premier, outlining our concerns about how this ministry, infrastructure, is planning on dealing with our situation, which I feel is dire.
Do we have any further comments?
I would agree with Councillor Sobel. I'd like to see us draft a letter and send something off to the Premier. I plan on doing it myself as well.
Any other comments?
Could we, Your Worship, could we send a letter off, the same letter off to our MLA, Jason Hill?
I would assume we would like to carbon copy our MLA in regards to that. And no further comments. I also saw it was on YouTube, and I felt that Minister Drysdale was not taking our concerns in regards to our hospital seriously. I was very disappointed to see a minister talk about our hospital in that fashion. And kudos to our MLA, Jason Hale, for attempting to have some action taken to improvements in our hospital. I would hope, and I will ask administration to draft a letter, and I would want the letter to be very direct and very firm in regards to Council's opinion, in regards to how we viewed Minister Drysdale's comments. Anything further that needs to be added? Should that be in a motion, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to move that that a letter be forwarded to the Premier in regards to Minister Drysdale's comments on November 21st, 2013 in the legislature regarding his response to MLA Jason Hale's questions about our hospital.
Further comments? No? All in favor? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
As our Director of Finance has not returned, we can continue on with any items from administration. No? No items from administration. Committee and departmental reports. Do we want to start with Councillor Sol?
Sure, thank you. So, Your Worship, in regards to the Strathmore Wheatland Addiction Team, or SWAT, our meeting was held on November 7th at the Wheatland County office. At this meeting, I was elected co-chair of this group. Updates were provided which dealt with the team's financial situation, grant applications, kids and drugs presentations, which ended on November 20th, and our slogan boards. Of interest was the update on the team's website, which at the time was nearing completion. I'm happy to say that it is now active and can be found at s-w-a-t.ca.
Oh, no, it didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't work. No, it didn't work.
Oh, darn. Well, let's just go this way here. Here it is. No, it's not going to work, is it? All right, well, it's there. Anyway, carrying on, one of our members agreed to represent the group at the November 21st United Way open house, and lastly, it was agreed to hire a replacement for our present student support position so that he or she can be trained in the springtime. I did not attend any Calgary Regional Partnership meeting in November, and there was no meeting held for the Calgary Regional Partnership Transportation Committee, nor was there one for the downtown revitalization. Lastly, in regards to Seniors Plus 55 games, I attended my first meeting there on November 24th and was easily impressed with the group of directors who were present. This is an enthusiastic and committed group of people, and the ideas and knowledge that was present is a bit overwhelming. Instead of sitting back and thinking about how far the games will this group is worried only that we have only 586 days left to prepare. I have no doubt that this group in charge, with this group in charge, we will be ready for the 2015 Summer Games. Focus at this meeting was in ensuring all the necessary paperwork to be host location is completed. There was a need to officially vote on the days that it will take place, and I can confirm that it will be July 16th to July 19th of 2015 rather. Also, directors are now beginning to establish their subcommittees and chairs, and so I invite anyone who is interested in becoming part of these committees, and there are 19, to contact Tracy Simpson from the town at 403-934-4692. That's all I have for reports, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Botham?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have no committee reports, as both of mine were cancelled and postponed due to the weather.
Okay. Councillor Walz?
Your Worship, I missed the United Way meeting due to the AMA convention. I did speak with the board chair and brought up the date as to the organization's activity. Wheatland Housing, I'm quite sure Councillor Field is going to comment a lot more on that. But I did meet with the CEO and signed 37 Christmas cards, I believe it was, or 38. She went over some policy documents with me and went over the last 3 minutes of meetings as well. Also have a copy of their contract, and I'm currently the new vice chair. The chamber, I met with the chamber and the vice chair of the board, along with the mayor and Dr. Stanford. Went over some things as well with them as well. They meet during the day at noon. I understand they're looking at actually moving that meeting to a different time, so like maybe looking for another councillor to take that committee on. Community Futures Wild Rose, I did not attend due to a previous commitment. Your Worship, you attended. I did want to talk about the AUMA convention I was at, I believe last week. I think it was last week, wasn't it? Wow. Yeah, a week before, things are just flying by. I went to a couple of the sessions. I went to the newly elected one. I listened to lawyers go through the MGA. It was extremely beneficial. I picked up some things that I'd missed during our actual orientation, so it was really beneficial. Day 2, I went to effective decision making. I'm actually hoping to bring that facilitator to Strathmore to facilitate to another group that it was really well put on course, I thought. Day 3 and 4 is very well. We met and listened to some different ministers and sat in some sessions about, one of the sessions I sat in on day 3 was about social media. It was a very good course, and I've implemented some of the things onto my Facebook and Twitter accounts as well. There's some things I hope to pass on to the town of Strathmore.
Thank you. Councillor Whipple?
I've attended numerous functions over the Happy Gang in the last month or so. And at the last meeting, I reported on our meeting that we had, our public meeting that we had at the town here. And there were questions asked, and so some question and answer period went on for a bit, and other than that, everything went well, and we're quite happy.
Good, thank you. Councillor Fuel.
The youth club board meeting was canceled due to the blizzard. Citizens on Patrol, I have the contact name to be able to see when we can have our first meeting. Communities in Bloom, we're having our first meeting on December 12th at 7 p.m. at the Chamber of Commerce. And I went to the first Wheatland Housing Committee meeting. We went through the various department reports. We had an election of board positions, as well as subcommittee placements, and we're having a seniors Christmas dinner with the board on December 12th as well, 5:30. That's it, Your Worship.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Peterson?
Through the chair, do you have those reports on you that I did? With you? No. It's different. I sent reports into Jennifer today. I just thought they'd be in the package, but she had a long day. So I will try to remember because I don't have them with me. So I attended Marigold Library. Their central meeting was canceled, and so I, living next door, was able to go over and meet with them on several occasions. And the issue that they brought forward is sitting in front of all the councillors, and it is regarding a request to the town to support them in this effort that they're going forward with. And that is that they believe that, if you look in paragraph 2, particularly, that the per capita grant for library systems in Alberta is being based on the 2010 population, and that is not accurate, and that because of that, they're losing significant amounts of dollars. And the letter goes on to explain that in great detail. And so they are asking that council support them in this, and also write a letter to the minister. So I would then make that a motion that council support Marigold Library in the effort to secure funding appropriate to the per capita population in our region.
Any questions in regards to the motion? Deputy Mayor Peterson, where does the funding come from in regards to the 460 per capita? Will it come from the provincial government?
This is a provincial per capita grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they're speaking about here.
And so the letter would be sent to who?
It would be sent to the minister, I believe. It doesn't say on here, but it would go, I believe, to Minister of Advanced Education and then Minister of Culture. I believe those two ministers.
And what we're looking at is for them to revisit our population.
Right, because they put a cap at the 2010 population. There's been a significant population growth in Alberta, and particularly in this region. Particular to this region, I should say particularly in this region, but particular to this region, where Marigold has determined that they've lost a significant amount of money as a result of the 2010 cap. And so it is a request to ask reconsideration on that cap.
Any further questions? Any further questions to Deputy Mayor Peterson? No? All in favor of sending the letter? All in favor of the motion, I should say. Carried unanimously.
Thank you. And in addition, I was incredibly impressed with the new catalog that has been put out by Miracle and outlining all of their services. It is their 74th catalog, the fall 2013 edition. It is amazing the growth that they've had. They're now the third largest library system in Alberta. They are also looking at expanding partnership and seeking support from the Siksika Nation. They are basing that potential partnership on a template between Chinook Arch Library System and the Gaina Band, the Blood Band by Lethbridge, which has had immense success because it's brought in a whole new level of partnership and offered additional services from federal and provincial government. That has been very worthwhile. So they are pursuing that. I was really impressed with the organization overall. I look forward to spending more time with them. I also spent time at the Strathmore Library, significant amounts of time, and was certainly impressed by their contention that they are in dire need of additional space. It was very evident being in the library that this is the case. Their needs assessment shows a deficit of 56% in terms of space. They have, there were, in the 6 visits that I've paid to the library in the last month, there are people standing in line to use the computers and not enough space for people to sit and do work at the tables. People patiently waited their turn to use plugins. And it was very impressive. Their circulation is up, which was good, and membership holding steady. They have all kinds of plans for future development as well. And one of the things that the head librarian Rachel asked me to bring here tonight, she has an idea for living libraries in the community, which is being done in other communities as well. And she asked that town council take an active role in this. She quoted our mayor from his campaign talking about accessibility to community, and said that she thought that would be a wonderful opportunity for mayor and council to become part of the living library and community, and that she would like local politicians and elected and appointed officials in government and people in positions of influence to make themselves available at the library for people to be able to come and ask questions in the form of a living library. I told her that I would bring that to council for their consideration and we would act on it at a future meeting. It seemed like a really interesting idea. I think the rest of what I have to be put out into the report. Woodams's meeting was canceled because of the weather. And I don't know if it's necessary that we talk about the Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting. Several of us did attend that. But it probably would be beneficial at some point in this meeting to talk about some of those things and read them into the minutes. There were some things of importance, I think, that happened at that meeting. That's all I have here.
Thank you. I have 3 that I will report on. I attended the Calgary Regional Partnership on November 15th, and it was an organizational meeting for the Calgary Regional Partnership, and the meeting was held in Cochrane. The group was formed to promote Calgary region in a sustainable way, including transportation, economic development, and growth management. Elected as chair, Barry Williamson, vice chair, Patricia Matthews, secretary, Bill Robertson. The officers at large are John Borelman and Jim Stevenson. The communities include Banff, Canmore, Cochrane, Airdrie, Irricana, Redwood Meadows, Turner Valley, Black Diamond, High River, Okotoks, Calgary, Chestermere, Nanton, and Strathmore. We are actually looking to have some other municipalities join the group, which would include the counties and the MDs in the area. The executive board is a representative. The executive board member is representative from each community. My impression from my first meeting with this group is that they are focused, they are engaged, and they want to work to promote our area in a cooperative fashion. And I look forward to working with this group. Calgary Regional Partnership were very involved and successful in making the amendments to Bill C-28. Our representative on the Transport Committee is Councillor Bob Sobel, and I will encourage other members of our council to sit on other committees for the Calgary Regional Partnership. Currently, this group represents over 1.2 million people, and it is expected that this area will be in excess of 3 million people by the year 2076. Bear with me while I figure out how to get on to the next one. I attended Community Futures Wild Rose on November the 7th. The meeting was held here in Strathmore. The election of officers was held. Chair is Alice Booth, Councillor, County of Wheatland. Vice Chair Vanessa Vandermeer, I forget where she's from. I didn't write that down, sorry. Secretary Treasurer that was elected is Michael Elmer of Strathmore. Dorwood and Company were appointed as auditors for a 3-year term. The Loan Subcommittee appointed 3 board members and 2 members at large. Board members will review their code of conduct and ethics for discussion at our next meeting. Financial reports were reviewed. Total loans for the period ending September 30th, 2013 are $3,470,000. Doubtful loans are $134,000. Loan activity has been substandard, with only 10 loan approvals for $500,000 in the past 7 months. An average number of loans for a period such as this is normally 40 loans. The committee requested I approach Strathmore Council, and they appoint me as a representative on the Community Futures Wild Rose. And one meeting, I will put my name forward to be appointed on that board. And I would accept the nomination if Council appointed me. Not now. I can't do it. I also attended AUMA. I attended the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association Conference, November the 18th to November 22nd. Monday and Tuesday were training days for Councillors Brad Walls and myself. We attended 2 sessions, effective decision-making and councillor orientation and contract issues. Both courses were well presented and beneficial to our preparing for the task as representatives for the town of Strathmore. Wednesday, I was enrolled in asset management and maximizing economic development. Also, council, the CAO, Deputy CAO, Director of Engineering and Operations, and I met with Alberta Transportation to discuss issues of our concern to our town. We were to meet with Alberta Environment, however, they did not attend the meeting, and it was rescheduled for the next day. Thursday, education sessions included balancing municipal books and building consensus. The meetings with Alberta Environment was held. Items of concern were discussed and action was recommended, and council administration will follow up on those items that were brought to our attention. Resolutions were presented and voted on Friday. As resolutions were closed prior to the election, no new items could be brought forward, and elections for AUMA board were held on Friday. This was an opportunity for me to meet with members of council from other communities around Alberta. And personally, I felt this was very beneficial to me, as it helped me to develop a bit of a network, so if I have questions in regards to my duties as a representative for the citizens of this town, I have a little bit more insight and a little more help when I have some areas that I need some direction on. This was beneficial as ideas were suggested and they can be retained to aid our town in the future. And some of the discussions that were held after hours may seem inconsequential, but as time goes along, you can use some of these ideas to help develop our town for the future. And that's all I have to report on. No, because it's new business. And I guess we can't make a motion in regards to my stuff until it's brought forward under new business. Yes?
On the economic development report, our building permits as of the end of November were just over $20 million. And of that, quite a bit of that was for duplexes, some for single-family housing, more for duplex than in the past even. And like the previous year, we had quite a bit on multifamily, 4.8 million. This year, 2.5. But the big increase was on the multifamily. And if you go over sort of behind Walmart in that area, there's a lot of duplexes been built, nice duplexes and so on. We never had very much industrial or commercial or institutional. Last year, our big thing, really biggest thing, was institutional, which was over 12.5 million. And this year it was just 705,000. But anyway, this coming year, looking ahead, looks like it'll be very well, because there'll be lots of permits coming in from the commercial development close to the highway there. And then north of that, in Bill Turnbull's property, we'll see a lot of single family homes going up. So we're looking forward to a good year. Thank you.
No other reports?
Your Worship, I think we should just briefly mention, many of us went to the Wheatland Regional Partnership. We should talk about.
Sure. And I didn't write that down, sorry.
And if I miss anything in there, those of you that were there maybe could fill it in. They're having a disaster services tabletop exercise the same day that we're having our open house on December 6th at the county office, but they did offer open invitation. They're also setting up a workshop in the future, so we're looking for the spring, for a project called Municipal Mediation. And that would be open to all municipalities, which I thought was a really good thing. They also have hired someone in their offices that is doing a lot of the position I understood was dedicated to grant funding, to writing grant funding. And they were open to joint initiatives throughout the County of Wheatland and Strathmore, and to develop project initiatives and collaborative partnership templates. Strathmore is hosting the next meeting. One of the things I found interesting is that every library in County of Wheatland and Strathmore is struggling, all of them. And they're looking for solutions as we are, and so the grant writer coordinator of the Wheatland County is definitely looking to do that. I know that there were some recommendations on the fire hall, but I think that's something we covered already. And yeah, I don't know if I missed anything.
Okay. There's, we can always update it next meeting. I forgot about that one. Okay, did we want to go back to?
Your Worship, I'll move that all committee reports be accepted for information.
Motion for all committee reports to be accepted as presented. Any discussion? None? All in favor? Carried.
Okay, after our discussion, we decided that we do need to have a bylaw, and we want to give first reading to it tonight, and they've drafted it up, and they'll pass it out. Tracy will right now, so everybody can look at it. And then we will advertise for 2 weeks, and then we can have second and third reading.
Thank you.
Thanks.
After reading it here, it looks like it's put together well, covers all the facts that we need, and it's basic.
Your Worship, I would move that Council give first reading to bylaw number 13-99.
Any questions? Comments? No discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Next item on our agenda is the budget.
Your Worship, I'll be declaring a conflict of interest. as I am a casual employee.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Good
Director of
evening.
Corporate Services.
Your Worship, Council. The Town of Strathmore 2014 budget is 2.5% higher than the budgeted tax amount for 2013. The budget includes an increase in spending for services provided to the community. For the Youth Center, and that's an increase of $110,000 over the prior year, and FCSS by $129,000. The town continues to support the Strathmore Handybus service with a contribution of $175,000. Included in the budget is no increase in fees for water, sewer, or waste. Capital spending for various projects is a total of $4,773,000, and it's 92% covered by grants, the balance by reserves. There was no new borrowing anticipated in the 2014 budget. The largest capital project is the reconstruction of Lakeside Boulevard at $1,575,000. And the second is the wastewater line reconstruction at the Bull River. The line was damaged by the flooding in the spring of 2013. It is anticipated that the provincial grant funding will be received to cover the cost of this project, and that's the disaster grant funding. In all, there are 30 projects included in the 2014 capital program. Pathways and playgrounds account for $266,000 of the capital spending. On the first page with the numbers, it's a summary by revenue by department. The second page is a summary of expenses by department. You'll note that the debt principal payments total $1,542,000. At the end of 2012, the debt owed by the town was $16,930,000, and it'll be reduced to $15,460,000 at the end of this year, and it'll go down by a further $1.5 million, $1,542,000. On the following page is the revenue and expenses by object. So same numbers expressed a little bit differently instead of by department. It's by object. And then the last page is the 2014 capital budget by department.
Do we have any questions in regards to the budget? Councilor Buckland?
Thank you, Worship. Through the chair to Mel, you said, maybe I wasn't listening correct, you said the debt is sitting at 16 million?
That was at the end of 2012.
At the end of 2012?
The debt at the end of this current year will be $15,460,000, and then through 2014 it'll be reduced by another $1,542,000. $542,000.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Fuel?
Your worship, through the chair to Mel. Mel, could you take a look at page 23, 2013 operating budget expenses by department? Could you elaborate on the increase? It's also on your highlights, an increase of 129,000 on FCSS from 2013 to 2014. It's about the middle of the page on 23.
The additional expense is in the way of wages.
Does that tie directly to the youth center having staff coming on stream?
No, this is not youth center.
It's
This
not.
is just FCSS.
Okay, so it's predominantly wages then?
Correct.
Okay.
No further questions?
Thank you.
Okay. So if we pass this budget tonight and we want to review the budget, say in 6 months' time, what's our avenue? Are we allowed to do it? If we come up with some adjustments that we need to do?
Certainly, council can pass resolutions increasing spending in particular areas.
Okay. And we could do that throughout the year then?
That's correct.
Okay. If there is a surplus at the end of the year, what happens to the surplus?
The surplus would go to either restricted reserves if authorized by council, or unrestricted surplus.
Okay. And so we get a choice in regards to that surplus as to whether we want to restrict it to certain projects or not to restrict it and just leave it open so we can use it for, in case we have a major snowstorm or something like that.
It's entirely up to council to decide on what reserves are carried forward.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Any further questions? Yes.
As someone new on council and having listened to Shannon's report carefully, the increase of $110,000 for the youth center, can someone give me some background on that?
Not too Tracy. Okay, Linda.
The youth center, we had met with the youth center, they were struggling financially. So we kind of brainstormed on a way to help them out. We felt it was a critical soft service to our community. And one of the ideas that we came up with was actually paying the cost for their staff wages. And that's kind of how that came about. And that would be able to continue functioning and providing the critical programs for our youth. Thank you.
If I could add to that, we also decided, I think through your group when you met, that it would almost come under the umbrella of the town, it would become a town department. So we also pay utilities at the youth center. So it takes a great deal off the shoulders of the youth club board and helps us be successful. So that was a great idea.
If you want, I can give you a little bit of an explanation on that CSS, the additional funding. Just for your information, we have taken on quite a few additional home support clients. I believe an additional 60-some. And in addition to that, we've also been providing free snow clearing services for seniors and handicapped individuals. So you can well imagine with the snow events that we have in town, that adds some costs to us.
Okay, thank you.
I have a
comment. I think that we had discussed the qualifications in order to access the snow clearing to some extent.
Right. We are having a look at that policy to actually qualify people to exactly what Matt said, access.
Councilor Sullivan?
And just a note, Your Worship, that there's also, on page 22, there's also an increase in the revenues in that department as well. I think just over $40,000 or something, which once again ties into the additional home support that is being offered.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion, please.
Your Worship,
Yes,
can I have one question?
by all means, please.
Through the chair to Mel, can you just expand on Heritage Days, Mel? We increased that by 50%, and I can't remember how we did that or how we got there. We dropped Canada Day down a bit, and Heritage Days is up quite a bit.
The announcer's stand and rental in Banner.
A new banner for with our new logo.
We're replacing the banner we had?
Right, because it would have the old logo on it, not the new logo.
The banner cost $8,000?
It was $5,500 for that one specific item included in the.
Your Worship, does Trace have any more comments on it?
The banner is just on an estimate of previous banners we purchased, and it's about $5,000 for the large one that goes across the line.
What's the lifespan of something like that? 10 years?
Quite a few years.
Yeah. So over a period of 10 years, $500 a year, which is advertising.
Your Worship, just before there's a motion made, I just want to make a comment that count this side just for the information of the general public. This is not the first time council's seen this budget. Unfortunately, we don't have our notes here, but we've spent, as council is aware, we've spent a lot of hours on this project already, and I just want to make it clear that we're just not receiving this for the first time today. That a great deal of work and discussions have been had on this budget in the preceding month.
Thank you. Further questions? No further questions?
Well, I have one, Your Worship. I know that in the past 3 years, the previous council, we had I think our tax increase was over the 3 years was 5.6%. Does that ring a bell with anyone as far as numbers? I guess my concern is we're looking at a 2.5% increase, and I still hear from people that there's the same old story that Strathmore has really high taxes. So I know we've gone through the budget, but I have some concerns about that 2.5% increase.
The 2.5% is budget over budget. When you factor in a growth factor of approximately 1%, or something close to that, the actual tax increase that the average property owner will receive will be less than 2%.
Did you get that down, Shannon? All right, great. Thank you, Mel. Thanks, Your Worship.
We'll entertain a motion now, please.
Well, Your Worship, I'd move that council approve the 2014 operating and capital budget as presented.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. And Councillor Walsh can come back in.
I'll go, yeah.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is council invitations. Do we have any council invitations?
There's an open house coming up this Friday from 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock here in council chambers, and we invite the public to come to that open house, have a few refreshments, and of course visit with council.
Of course. No other invitations? Any items for in camera?
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.